In FM23, I came up with probably the most successful tactic that I have ever come up with in my entire FM playing career. It was the unstoppable 41221. It turned out to be last year my most viewed video and was downloaded and used by a lot of people who achieved a lot of success with this particular tactic. But with all that has changed in FM24 and a lot has changed, I'm now being asked the question, can it still work in FM24? And the answer is yes, but we have had to make a few little adjustments and modifications, but it's working very nicely and we're still winning trophies. Let's find out how we've changed it. Let's go and kick some balls. Hello and welcome back to FM with Old Man Phil. And today we are going to be revisiting the 41221, possibly the best tactic that I have ever produced in my entire career on FM. And I know that so many of you downloaded this and viewed this video and have used this tactic during FM23 and have had astonishing results, as I did, winning trophy after trophy with this very simple little formation. And the question that I have been asked again and again and again is, does it work in FM24? Well, as you know, there were two parts to this tactic. There was the low block and then there was the high press. And the high press we would use when we were favourites to win a game, and the low block we would use when we were playing teams in which we were underdogs. If you do want to have a look at the video that has a look at how this tactic works, where it creates the space and how to set it up and what kind of players that you need to play this tactic, I will leave a link to that in the description below. So feel free to click on that at the end of this video and then have a look at how you set up this tactic to begin with. But first we are going to take a look at the low block. The game producers have made a lot of changes in FM24, and some of those changes have had an impact on whether formations and tactics still work. And I can tell you that the changes that the game engineers have made have affected how the low block works. And I can tell you that the low block no longer works. I've tried the low block version of this formation in all sorts of saves using different mentalities and setups, and the low block just does not seem to work, and I cannot get it to work at all. In fact, I'm a little concerned that any sort of formation under low block just does not work in FM24. I think there has been an emphasis on looking at attacking movement this year, and defensive formations and tactics have taken a backseat, and I don't think any of them work, and it's very, very difficult to defend against the new attacking movement that has been set up for this game. As a person who values good defensive stuff as well as attacking things, I would value if they actually looked at defensive tactics as we move towards FM25. It's nice to see all this attacking movement, but also let's have some defensive play as well in the game. And so playing FM24, we need to be playing in a very positive attacking style and be getting players high up the pitch. And so the high press version of this is very well suited to FM24. And so having tried it out in all kinds of saves, I can tell you that the low block version of this doesn't work. And just to prove that it doesn't work, I set up a save with Burnley. And as you can see, I am not at Burnley anymore. And actually what happened was I got sacked before Christmas. I actually set up the team, set up the tactic, and then went away on holiday and got sacked way before Christmas time. And it was just around Christmas time that I got the sack. But you can see I got sacked because results on the pitch were extremely poor. And this is the low block, and unfortunately that was the proof for me, given that this is Burnley and they should be playing a low block. That was the proof for me that the low block version of this tactic does not work in FM24. But the good news is that the high press version of this tactic definitely works. And as you can see from this Arsenal save that we have set up, it is exactly the same as we set it up originally in FM23. And if we have a look at their results on the pitch, you can see that this is definitely working. And although they had a difficult start, shall we say, only winning 3 out of their first 6 games, they have now got familiar with the tactic. It does take a little while for teams to get familiar with this tactic, but now that they are familiar, they've absolutely gone on an outstanding run. And it's looking very, very good for this Arsenal team. They are currently in second in the league, 2 points behind Liverpool. And I would say if we'd run this up to the end of the season, I would say we would be very close to winning the title at the end of the season. So as you can see, it does mean that the high press version of this tactic actually does work. But we have to be aware that this is Arsenal. And Arsenal are a very good team, and so you would expect this high press version of the tactic to work. And if we run through the tactic, it's very, very simple. It's a very high tempo, working it into the box, underlap down the left-hand side. Everything else left undone, counter press, counter, and then looking at the out of possession, we're going to play with a high press, higher line, trigger press more often and stop the crosses. It's a very, very simple setup, and if you do want to see how to set up this high press version, which still works really well, then go to the video link in the description below, and that will show you how to set it up, and indeed you can even download the tactic from there. But as I said, Arsenal are a very, very good team, and that's probably why this high press version is working. We have, however, had to make some tweaks in the other saves that we have been managing. And have we been winning trophies with this 4-1-2-2-1? Yes, we have. And in the 3 seasons that I have played in my main YouTube save, we have won 3 cups and 2 titles. And we are very much on course to win the title again with Hiroshima this season, which will give us our 6th trophy in this save already. And so, yes, this 4-1-2-2-1 definitely does work, and we've actually proved that it does work. It's what we've been using in the live stream as well. We've used it with Notts County in League 2, and after our first season, which has just finished, we finished on top of the league. We won the title, and so another trophy was won using this particular tactic. It is relentless and it does work. But in order for it to work, we've had to make some changes. And if we look at the tactic itself, what we have done is we have slowed the tempo down. And the reason why we've slowed the tempo down is because I think that in FM24 now, the attributes play a bigger part when you are setting up your tactic. And so if you are not a very, very good passing team, then you should be playing with a lower tempo. This is my belief, it's my opinion, it's not confirmed yet and the jury's still out, but I believe that you should be playing with a slightly lower tempo and slightly narrower if you are not a very good team. This enables you to hold possession better than if you were distributing the ball quickly and trying to get it up the pitch very, very quickly. So we've reduced the tempo this year to a slightly lower tempo, could even go down more. When we are trying to hold on to a game, we can even take that down much more. And so rather than using the low block when we're trying to hold on to a game, we'll just slow the game down completely, dribbling less, being more disciplined. We will slow the tempo down, the passing directives will become even more compact and narrow, and we'll time waste. That's how we're going to try and hold on to a game during FM24, not with the low block. Out of possession, it's pretty much the same. We have this high press and the higher defensive line. However, when we're playing against teams who were not clear favourites to win, we will drop the line back to standard. And that's because when you're in lower leagues, like we have been in Japan or with Notts County, then teams defensively are not as assured as teams who might be on top of the Championship or the Premier League. And so we have to give the defenders more time when they are receiving the ball. And when they get more time to receive the ball, they're able to be a bit more composed and they're less likely to be hurried into making mistakes. So if we are playing against a team who are much better than us, we're going to drop that line and then we'll just add step up more to it. And so that out of defense is how we are going to play. If we are as good as or better than teams, then we will use the high press and the higher line of defense. And then in transition, this is where the big changes have happened to the tactic. Now, with all the teams that we have played with, including Persib in Indonesia, where we won trophies, including Hiroshima, where we've won lots of trophies, and Notts County, all teams who are not great, you can see, then we are coming off the counter press, off the counter, and we are not doing anything in respect of transitions. And so what would the reason for that be? Well, as I said, I think the attributes this year play a much greater part in how you set up your tactic. And so if you have a team that is not capable of counter-pressing and their attribute score is less than 12 or 11 for work rate, for stamina, for anticipation, for acceleration, for all those good things that make a team good at counter-pressing, then you're not going to be able to do it. And I think now by putting it on, then you're just going to have your team running around like idiots and not being able to counter-press. If you are really, really poor at it, then I would suggest you would go and regroup. But I think most teams should be able to cope just by leaving off the counter press. And we are also not going to counter attack anymore. And we've been very successful just leaving these blank. And the reason for that, I believe, is having analysed what is going on. I think that if you don't have great passing within your team, then if you are counter attacking, then what is happening during the game is that all these players, when you regain possession, then all these players are bombing up the pitch, leaving you very vulnerable at the back. And then what happens is once a team turns over the ball, if you are not great at passing, you're likely to give the ball away, and then you will be leaving spaces behind your defence or in midfield because all your players have gone AWOL on the counter-attack. And so one of the most dangerous things in FM for a few years has been giving the ball away when you are going forward. And that now, by taking off the counter-attack, then what that means is that we are not going to be getting ourselves out of shape when we are bombing up the pitch needlessly. By taking these off, it doesn't mean that the team are not going to counter-press, and it doesn't mean that we're not going to counter-attack. It just hopefully means that we're going to take our time a little bit. We're not going to go gung-ho anymore, that we're going to try and make more sensible decisions about when we do both of those things. And the key to the success of this is to think about the team attributes, and to, when you go to your squad comparison, to think about the average that you have. And so, for example, Hiroshima, who are definitely the best team in Japan at the moment, their ability to counter-press is still pretty poor. And I think the average that they have for counter-pressing, for the attributes needed for counter-pressing, is around about just under 11. And so that tells me that even if though they're the best team in Japan, they are still not capable of counter-pressing well. And so we are not going to counter-press unless they are a very, very good team and they've got an average rating of around 12, 13, 14 for those pressing attributes. Then we're not going to be doing it. And I think it's really important this year to actually assess that. And just because you happen to be a great team in League Two, for example, like Notts County, it doesn't mean that you can counter-press. Notts County's ability to press was actually around about 10. They can't counter-press, so it's better not to do it rather than to actually try and then run all over the pitch and get yourselves out of shape and get yourselves in trouble. And the same applies for the attributes required for counter-attacking. If you don't have the pace and the game intelligence and decision making to actually counter-attack sensibly, then don't put it in there. It doesn't mean, as I said, that they won't do it. It's just that they won't do it every single time. They will just be more sensible about it, perhaps, and they will defensively make fewer errors if you leave these out if they are not good enough. Many people have complained that defensively the game is all over the place, and I do believe that it is very, very important now that you take into account the average rating of the attributes that are required for the counter press and for the counter. And also with that, you have to also be very careful at the trigger press, and you have to make sure that you have good, decent average rating for the trigger press throughout the team before you apply these two buttons. And sometimes I will just have the trigger press set like that. But at the moment, with the games that we have for Hiroshima, I am actually trigger pressing a lot more. So you do need to tweak the tactic a little bit more. You do need to keep an eye on those three things: the trigger press, the counter attack, and the counter press. And you need to make sure that you have a team that is capable of doing that. And just being the best in your league doesn't mean that you have the ability to do it. You have to make sure that the attributes required are at least above 12 before you start clicking on counter or counter press. And so, yes, I have had a lot of success with this. I've had to tweak it a lot. It still is a great tactic. It still scores a lot of goals. The low block doesn't work, but by modifying the high press, we are still getting amazing results. And we just keep getting them. In whatever save that we have been doing, we just keep getting results. We just keep winning trophies. And if you do apply what we've learned in FM24, because FM24 is now a completely different game, it has been like learning a new game. If you apply what we've learned to this tactic and use the new way of playing, then you will also win lots of trophies and be very successful in FM24. I think it still is a great tactic and it's still well worth using. I will leave a link in the description below to the original video which explains how it works and why it works and the kind of players that you need in order to set this up. And hopefully many of you will go there and download it and give it a try and start winning trophy after trophy, as I am doing quite happily here, as I did last year. And so that's it for this video. Just a quick update to answer all the questions that people have been asking. Does the 41221 still work in FM24? It didn't at first, but we've made it work. If you are brand new to the channel, give us a like and subscribe to the channel if you've made it this far, and follow along with all the saves that we've currently got going, including the live stream that we're doing at Notts County, which is a very, very difficult save, but we have made a good start to season 2. Thanks all for popping along and watching this, and I hope many of you will go away now, apply what I've learned to the 41221 and carry on being very, very successful with this tactic. All that remains to be said now is thanks for stopping by, stay safe, and we'll see you, hopefully, in the next video.